Welcome to the Budo Bite mini podcast, your essential guide to the fascinating world of Japanese Budo, culture and philosophy. I'm Alex Bennett, a long-time martial arts practitioner, researcher and writer based in Kyoto, Japan, with decades of experience training, teaching and navigating the rich complexities of Budo. Hi everybody, in today's episode of Budo Bite, I'm going to talk about luck. Boon, to be exact, that's martial luck, boon. Ever since the anime Demon Slayer became a phenomenal hit, terms like Gobun o, which means good martial luck, and Bun Chokyu, long-lasting martial luck, have captured people's imagination and interest. That's in Japan. I imagine it's the same to a certain extent around the world as well, given the immense international popularity of Demon Slayer. But in any case, these terms evoke a sense of resilience and acknowledgement of luck or fortune in battle. Now, these ideas are deeply rooted in Japanese martial arts culture. And I find it interesting that due to this anime influence, students preparing for their entrance exams in Japan have also started using boon to wish each other luck. Now, though this casual use might not be entirely appropriate given its martial context, it shows how deeply these cultural terms can resonate in daily life across many generations. In the context of Budo, however, boon is completely fitting and very weighty. Now, boon specifically refers to the fate or luck that determines victory or defeat in battle, as well as the broader destiny that martial artists and warrior families in the old days had to embrace. The term dates back to historical literature, such as the Taiheki, which was put together around about the 14th century, and it highlights how fundamental this concept has always been to martial philosophy and to the samurai way of life. In recent times, I'm reminded of the 72nd All Japan Kendo Championships, which happened in November 2024 at the iconic Nippon Budokan. Now, that year's tournament was special because it combined the men's and the women's competitions into one spectacular event, and you could really feel the energy in the air. The venue was absolutely packed and it was buzzing. Now, in the men's competition, Goya Ryo was representing Kyoto Prefecture, which is my home, or has been my home for over 30 years, so naturally I was rooting for him. And he showed some pretty amazing skill and spirit, managing to battle his way into the final match. Now, the atmosphere was truly electric as he stepped into the final bout against the seasoned and formidable veteran, Takenouchi Yuya. The match was, as to be expected, intense and exactly the kind of dramatic finale you'd expect at such a prestigious championship. Now, I was there on assignment for Kendo World, and I was sitting courtside clicking away with my camera, capturing thousands of images. And while I admit not all of them, in fact, hardly any of them turned out as great as I'd hoped, I did manage one really awesome shot. That was the exact moment Takenouchi landed the winning man strike to Goya's head. Now, kendo matches are decided by a best-of-3 system, and Takenouchi had already scored a perfect kote strike to the wrist earlier. It was pretty amazing. The strike really echoed beautifully around the Budokan. But then came that decisive man strike. The strike that sealed Goya's fate as runner-up and Takenouchi's fate as champion yet again. But something seemed a bit off. As soon as I pushed the shutter button on the camera, I knew that I'd captured the moment, but I had this feeling that something was not quite right. The strike didn't quite seem on target. So immediately what flashed through my mind was, had the shimpan, the referees, missed something? Initially, I had my doubts, but I was too caught up in the moment to check the actual photo. But when I did, I saw that it was indeed the perfect shot of a not quite perfect strike. But I wasn't about to join the bandwagon people criticizing referees. Honestly, Blaming refs has become an all too common, rather toxic trend in sports culture everywhere nowadays. It's easy to sit back and point fingers from the comfort of a spectator's seat, but referees are making, instantaneous decisions under pretty amazing pressure. And they do deserve respect for handling such a tough and, let's face it, thankless job. But maybe that's something I can talk about in a later podcast. Anyway, on the Shinkansen back to Kyoto, I showed the photo to my sensei, who, incidentally, was at the time Goya's instructor at the Kyoto police. Now, his reaction was simple and clear. Yeah, mate, it's boon. And rough translation would be, yeah, that's martial luck for you. You win some, you lose some. Now, you've got to remember, these guys are professionals, and winning the All Japan Championships does incredible things for your career. But this was the attitude that, okay, didn't work out. The photo showed that the man strike didn't actually hit the man. But the attitude was, sometimes these moments aren't just about skill or precision. They're about momentum, they're about chance, or simply being in the right place at the right time. Boon is the luck of battle, and it acknowledges something beyond human control. A force that, can swing outcomes in ways that no one can predict. You train hard. You train really hard. You prepare meticulously. But sometimes the universe just decides it ain't your day. Now, this idea, boon, is central to Budo as a whole. It teaches humility, resilience, and acceptance. You might think that you've performed perfectly only to lose, or you might win despite feeling that you didn't really deserve it. Who can really say why? Now, rather than getting bitter about it, you accept the outcome gracefully. You learn from it, and you move on. When we're talking about competitions, of course, we see this happen all the time in other sports as well. Now, I'm reminded of the legendary 1999 UEFA Champions League final between Manchester United and Bayern Munich. Now, I'm not a fan of either team, I should add. It's just because I'm in Munich right now as I make this recording. Now, in that match, Bayern was leading 1-0 right up to injury time and seemed, certain to win. But incredibly, United scored 2 goals in quick succession, which completely reversed the outcome, and they snatched victory from Bayern Munich's seemingly guaranteed grasp. It was a great example of how quickly luck and momentum can shift, echoing exactly the essence of boon. Now, why did it happen? Was it skill? Was it pressure? Or was it just plain bad luck? Or, in the case of United, plain good luck? Again, boon happens. But back to Budo, it's a beautiful human pursuit precisely because of its unpredictability. Yes, referees can make mistakes, and we don't want them to make mistakes. And as a referee, if you get the chance to do it, of course you do your best to make accurate judgments that are fair and square and in the spirit of Budo. But Shimpan, the referees, they're human. They make split-second judgments based purely on what they experience, what they see, and what they sense at that precise moment. There are no replays, at least in the case of Kendo, there's no TMO. For me, that's part of Budo's analog appeal. It's simplicity and humanity. That's accepting outcomes as they come. At least that's how it should be. When I see Budokan competitions throwing tantrums because they lost or doing an Irish jig because they won, it actually turns my stomach. But again, that's a podcast for another time. Even though my photo showed the man strike was slightly off target, I know that Budo is bigger than any single strike or any single match. There's a famous saying, "Utte hanse, utarete kansha," which basically means reflect when you strike and be grateful when you are struck. Now, while this saying isn't about luck per se, It complements the idea of boon by reinforcing the mindset needed to gracefully navigate outcomes that are beyond our control. Each encounter, whether victorious or not, is an opportunity for reflection and gratitude. Even though outcomes involve an element of luck, the attitude with which we accept and respond to them is entirely within our power. Now, Takenouchi, I'm sure, celebrated his victory with a few beers when he got home. And Goya, I'm sure, reflected on his loss, but without biatching. Both of them are pros and undoubtedly understand and respect the power of boon. And in the end, that's what makes Budo, and life for that matter, so compelling. Budo is life. You never quite know what's going to happen, but you keep moving forward anyway. So let's see what happens in November 2025. Go Goya!